Welcome to Normalize the Conversation. I'm your host, Francesca Reigeter, and today I'm joined by the head of the International Transcendental Meditation Organizations and the author of Consciousness is All There Is, How Understanding and Experiencing Consciousness Will Transform Your Life, Dr. Tony Nader. In this episode, Dr. Nader provides the methods, tools, and guidance for connecting with our authentic inner nature and understanding how consciousness is the essence of all existence. Thank you so much for joining me. I am very excited to talk with you today. But before we begin, I want to check in. How are you really?
How am I really?
Yes.
I'm fine. We're in Florida. We happen to miss the big part of the hurricane. We're sorry that it has happened for everyone. And we are fine. We are looking forward to our discussion today.
I'm glad you're safe. My family's in Florida too, and a big thing that's come up for a lot of me and my friends, because right now we're not in Florida, is how can we help? They're saying the storms are coming more frequently, climate change. All these things are happening, and where do we fit in? How can we help? How can we do something? We feel so paralyzed in this fear of, I can't do anything.
People think that all that is done is only on the surface, but when we think carefully, we realize that it's our thoughts that the basis of our actions. So our mind is the basis of our activity. And it's through our action, of course, that we achieve things, that we can make change. But change doesn't happen if we don't have the right planning, the right thinking, and the right feeling. And all the right planning, thinking, and feeling come from somewhere deeper within us, which is our awareness, our consciousness. How broad it is, how narrow it is, how limited it is, how expansive it is, how much we can make it broader, and how much we can expand the awareness of our friends and people and our society, so that as a group we make the right decisions and then can make a difference. So this is why I focus on consciousness and on the studies on consciousness and how consciousness can really make a difference for our decision making, our planning, and ultimately our achievement and fulfillment.
I listen to your podcast a lot, and one thing that I really love is your ocean wave analogy because it is so, I do feel so caught up in my own thoughts and my feelings and experiences, and I feel so isolated in it. And I feel so, how do I fit in? I feel completely confused on, I know what I want to do, I know how I want to help people, yet I feel so isolated in this idea of where do I belong in the world? And listening to you explain that made me feel this sense of I'm not alone in it. And as I explore more of who I am beneath the surface and how I can actually connected to people and I'm not alone in it, really helped with some of the anxiety I've been feeling lately.
That's really beautiful because it depends on our perspective of the world, of our reality, which I call the worldview that we have. What is our worldview? Why we are here? Where we're going? And these are profound questions that many people ask, but oftentimes they let go because they feel there are no true answers to that. And this has been my personal search in life to understand exactly those questions that you are asking: how we are connected or disconnected, are we alone, why we are here, where we're going. And that brings us to, the total understanding of a paradigm of life. A paradigm means a model, a way of understanding reality. And we can also call it a worldview. Are we all connected? Why things happen to us? Is it isolated? Is it chaos? Is it chance occurrence? Or we have responsibility? And what can we do about it? And so these are very profound personal questions, but also philosophical questions and scientific questions that have been asked throughout time. And many different angles have been given to answer those. And I have spent, my research time as a scientist, as a medical doctor, as a researcher, and also as somebody exploring the ancient wisdom of meditation and yoga and all of that to understand what is ultimate reality on a true scientific basis also, as well as spiritual. And I have come to the very strong conclusion based on experience and logic and understanding and empirical studies and theory of nature, that we are all actually part of an ocean of being, which is called consciousness. Consciousness is not something that just emerges from a nervous system, but is something like an ocean, which is very basic to our life, and from which we emerge waves on that ocean. So we are all different waves on the surface. We enjoy our differences. But when we look deep, if we expand our awareness, our consciousness, we find that we truly are the ocean. And therefore, we are all connected within. There is a thread, which is more than a thread, which is an ocean by itself of being, that actually creates the waves that appear as what we are. And therefore, we are all connected, and our collectivity creates a collective consciousness. So, when we come back to the initial question about what can we do about climate change, what can we do about artificial intelligence, about genetic engineering, about taking care of our world, what we can do is actually dive deep within ourselves and enliven that ocean that connects us. And then we will awaken in our own awareness, as well as in the collective awareness of society, a new perspective, an ability to see broader than small, narrow, isolated perspectives. And this is how we can actually make governments and people and societies take right decisions and right actions for our society. So this is in a overall description.
I love learning about this because it is so hard to know what decision to make and what's the right decision. And we're so caught up, I think in my generation, we're seeing the prevalence of anxiety and depression growing. And it just feels like this paralyzing fear for so many people that they're like, I don't know how to make a decision, how to move forward. So if you want to dive deeper and help figure out that next step, how to take the first step.
You see, it's a perception of who we are that is also important. And when we are in isolation and we're feeling isolated, we're feeling alone, we're feeling not so much connected to anything, and that things happen to us, we are overwhelmed and we find ourselves incapable of making a big difference. And when we realize that we are deeper than that and we can act from a deeper level, then things change. Now, how to realize that, that's very important, and how to make a difference. On a simplest possible level, take a day when you have slept well in the night, you feel refreshed, and you have maybe heard some good news or something like that, and your mind is quiet and peaceful. You tend to find solutions, you tend to make decisions that are right, and even sometimes you experience that things work for you better, even from the outside, as if you have things, you are more lucky today than yesterday or the day before. And that is simply by just having a mind that is rested. Now, when the mind is excited or turbulent or fatigued, tired, we haven't slept well in the night, we have had bad experiences, then we are narrowing our perception, our perspectives. It's like the wave becoming so narrow, and our ability, we are floating on a wave, and our vision is scared and narrowing down. And that we know happens in the fight or flight response. When we are exposed to danger, our vision narrows down in order to be able to deal with the danger. Either you have to fight the tiger in the jungle, or you have to run away. And so even the blood flow to the different parts of the brain it changes. It goes to the part which is about protection and fighting and all of that. And the whole physiology works in a way that is like that. And if it keeps working like that because we realize or we think that we are constantly exposed to danger, you know, the climate, the divisions, the politics, the environment, all of this, we're isolated. So we're constantly in the fear kind of underlying situation. And we're constantly almost fighting the reality to understand where we are and where to go. That is actually by itself limiting our possibilities, narrowing our brain activity and its ability to function. So, what we need is to relax, let go of things, settle down, and there expand our awareness. And we see this physiologically. We see that when this happens, even the blood flow in the brain goes to the parts that are able to solve problems, goes to the frontal part of the brain, where we have what we call the CEO of the brain, the chief executive officer, which can think of the future and compare the past to the present and the future and plan and think in a more holistic way. So, how to do that? How to get rid of this danger situation that over time creates for us fear, and then over time it becomes anxiety. We don't know what we're afraid of. We're just afraid. We're not insecure, and we can feel overwhelmed or depressed and like mentally not so well. What we have to do is to rest deeply. And there is a technique which we teach, which is called transcendental meditation. It's a very simple technique that you practice morning and evening for 20 minutes, sitting comfortably in a chair. You don't have to change your belief system or your philosophy or diet or anything. Of course, if you change your diet and do exercise, it's helpful. But for this technique, it's not even necessary. You just sit comfortably in a chair, close the eyes, and allow the mind to settle down. We have said like we are like in an ocean, and the ocean, and there are the waves. And we can say that the mind is like an ocean also. And that ocean has waves, and we are floating on the surface, and we are kind of sometimes tossed around by different waves and taken right and left. And what we can do in this meditation is allow the mind to settle down and dive deep within. And as we dive deep within, we actually discover that we are the ocean. It's not something just theoretical, which means, oh, it's a nice idea. Let's think like that. It's helpful to think like that. It could be helpful, but it doesn't help very much. It remains on a, you know, on an intellectual level or on an imaginary level. But when you actually dive within through this technique, a mental technique, which is very simple, you can learn it in 3, 4 days, about 1.5 hours a day. And you can check, you know, tm.org, transcendentalmeditation.org, or you can read my book and have more understanding about it. I wrote a recent book which has become a bestseller. It's called Consciousness is All There Is, that explains that the fundamentals of life are based on our awareness, our consciousness. And there you can find how to dive deep into the self and why you should do it and how it works. And it's very simple, very natural. Even children from age 5, they can start doing it. And at whatever age, whatever background, what you find is your mind settles down and gets so deep that the body and mind rest very, very deeply. And it's not only rest like sleep, it's deeper than that. And at the same time, you are awake. So it's wakeful alertness. So it's a spontaneous state where you are very alert, very awake, but very deeply rested. You know, again, the same thing as when you have had a very good night's sleep and you wake up fresh and all of that. And imagine that multiplied many times, much clearer and much more rested. So very rested, very calm, and yet very awake. This is what broadens the awareness and removes the stresses and strains that cause anxiety and depression. We have used this now for millions of people around the world. About 10, 12 million people have learned this technique. And recently we have been doing it in hospitals where the doctors, the nurses, the hospital staff have had like almost very traumatic, like stress, post-traumatic stress, particularly when there was COVID and there was demand and all of that. Many doctors have experienced insomnia and depression and anxiety. And we have tried it with them, and there are many scientific publications now that show how it reduces anxiety, reduces depression. You feel more healthy, you sleep better, you focus more, and you are more creative because you're using your full potential within rather than being on narrow fight and flight response all the time.
That is so powerful. So, being online on TikTok, scrolling endlessly, you see the battles of meditation, how it's helpful or it's not helpful. And then everyone's 20-second or 1 minute guide. So this is how you do it. And then it doesn't work for you. And you're like, what is wrong with me? And that's something that I've went down that rabbit hole of. But listening to you explain it as the good night's sleep of rest. I know for me, those days I get that good night's sleep of rest and I wake up and my first instinct is not to check social media. I'm actually waking up pretty happy and feeling more motivated. Versus when I don't have a good night's sleep, for some reason, my first instinct is to go on social media and start comparing myself to everything everyone else is doing. And then just spiraling in that anxiety. Why am I not good enough? Why am I not further along? Why does my success not look like their success? Why are they buying houses and I'm not? So it goes through this whole question of who am I? Where do I fit in? What is wrong with me? And to think about how the impact of rest really changes that beginning of my day, how powerful transcendental meditation could actually be doing it twice a day or at all to get my brain into that rest mode so I can show up creatively as myself instead of in this fight or flight state from the moment my eyes open.
Yeah, beautifully, beautifully described. And so regarding these ideas of mindfulness and this, and they are helpful in some ways, some small ways. Sometimes they themselves create anxiety because there is research that shows now if you try to be mindful too much and you're not mindful, so that creates conflict in your mind. Why I'm not being able to be mindful? Should I be mindful this way? Should I be mindful that way? And that's why we resort to techniques that have been used for thousands of years, such as transcendental meditation. It's not just today somebody invents something, but it's part of the ancient yoga system of practice. And it's the yoga of the mind. Yoga means union, to unify your mind and body with yourself, unify yourself with your environment, experience that oneness, that wholeness, that inner peace. And that is a technique that is very, very simple. It's like the highest level of yoga, which is yoga of do less and accomplish more in a sense. So it's not a technique where you have to prove to yourself something, or you have to talk to yourself, or you have to manipulate your mind or guide your mind in one direction or the other. It's a simple technique that allows the mind, guided by its own nature, to settle down. So, what is the nature of the mind? Nature of the mind is to always search for more. As you explained, we want to be more happy. We want to have more things. We want to see beautiful things. We want to hear beautiful things. We want to be loved. We want to be great. We want to be powerful. We want to be rich. It's fine. It's part of the nature of things. And so we are looking for more and more always through our senses in the outside and comparing and thinking in the outside. What this meditation gives us, transcendental meditation, is the ability to dive deep within. And within us is the source of all creativity, all happiness, all strengths that we can have. It gives us clear vision, settlement in the self. We know we expand ourself. We have this deep, deep experience of ourself as being unlimited, as being grand, as being peaceful and harmonious. So we really discover something in ourselves that is so precious, that allows us to truly love ourselves, not by convincing ourselves to love ourselves, but by experiencing ourselves as something more than we have ever thought. And by going that deep within and knowing I am the ocean, I'm not just a wave, and everyone is the ocean also. There is such harmony and peace that is created where we accept all the waves and they are different and everyone has its size and its shape, but we also have our size and our shape. But basically, profoundly, we are the ocean and they are the ocean. And when we know we are the ocean, we know we are all the waves. And so there is no more contradiction on the surface level. And again, I want to emphasize this is not just on the level of, okay, a nice idea, a nice philosophy, or a nice paradigm, a nice worldview. It's a direct experience of who we are. That is why transcending. Transcending means to go beyond. So we go beyond the surface to the inner levels. So there are different techniques of focusing on this and that, but each of them has its effect. And this one is, that's why we personally, think it's absolutely great and wonderful and the best as far as I'm concerned, and scientifically proven, is to go beyond everything and experience the self. And all else becomes natural and becomes naturally fulfilling.
Experiencing yourself instead of forcing yourself to love yourself. There's so many days where I stand looking at myself in the mirror saying, I love you, you are love. And it's like, why don't I feel that way? And it's because I spend so much time on that surface level, all that self comparison and all this feeling like I'm racing against the clock of having to be successful by a certain age. That Forbes 30 under 30 list lives in my head rent free. So it's this constant surface level of comparison. And to know that there's a tool out there that can help me transcend that surface level, dive deeper, and experience myself and enjoy who I am and exist instead of exist as fear is just so amazing. But for someone like me who's tried TikTok's meditation, who's tried meditations that people post online, and it's really hard to shut off my brain sometimes. And I've convinced myself for so long that meditation doesn't work for me. So how can someone like me who has that idea that it doesn't work begin to make that step toward transcendental meditation? Is that something that could help me?
This is really the difference, is that, as we discussed a little bit, it's not an intellectual undertaking, it's not manipulation of the mind, it's not making mood of anything. Actually, during the practice, when you learn it, we repeat, the teachers repeat again and again, take it as it comes, take it easy, have no expectation, no anticipation, don't try to make an effort, don't try to create silence, because the more you try to create silence, the more you are forcing the brain to be active and anxious and trying to do it. I can do it, I cannot do it, creating a void. This doesn't happen. You see, when you have a honeybee that is buzzing around, and it's buzzing and buzzing and buzzing, and then it finds the nectar. When it finds the nectar, naturally it settles on the flower and starts taking the nectar from the flower because it is fulfilled. So if you give the mind something that is fulfilling, naturally it will go there. And inside of us is that which is most fulfilling. We don't know it maybe if we have not transcended, but there is a technique to be learned. So it's not something you do like this in a second, but it's not something that is taking years to practice and hard and all of that, like some Zen practices. You have to focus and struggle and take time. It's something you learn in 3 4 days. 4 days is nothing, 1.5 hours a day, but it gives you a structured technique, a system that comes from thousands of years of practice and have been proven scientifically And you have to make a little bit to give it some chance to do it. It's not that you have to make an effort. To the contrary, in this technique, you have to learn how not to make an effort, how not to try to impose on yourself something. And when you learn that, then you are spontaneously, that is very important, which means without effort, you spontaneously dive into that. And many people who told us, I cannot do it, my mind not stopping, it's like a monkey jumping around all the time. When they close the eyes and they find this nectar within, then the honeybee settles down and is quiet. And that means it's a process of attraction, not a process of forcing something. And it's a process of naturalness using the nature of the mind. See, when you are reading a book, and let's say the book is not so interesting, and then some music starts next door that is a nice music. Your eyes can be going through the lines of the book, but your mind, your consciousness, is now with the music. So you're listening to the music and your eyes feel like they're reading, but you're not on the book. You're on the music. The book is not interesting. How did this shift happen? Did you make an effort? To the contrary, you wanted to read the book. But naturally, spontaneously, because the music was more attractive, your mind went to the music. So we use that tendency of the mind to want to go to more choice, to more happiness, to more charm, guide it inside and help it. We use a sound which is called a mantra that has no meaning. But you have to do it correctly. You have to do it properly. You have to learn. We can't teach you from the book or we can't teach you from internet. You have to go to a teacher. There is a understanding, a preparation, and then you learn it. And then you can, get your checking time with an app. We have an app also for that. And so this is really very simple, very natural, and millions of people have experienced it.
That brings me so much hope because this idea of having to force my mind to shut off and just focus in stillness and silence for 20 minutes straight, 30 minutes straight feels really overwhelming because the more I try to force my mind to shut off, the more thoughts keep going.
Right.
And then I'm convinced that nothing's going to help those intrusive thoughts go away. Nothing's going to help me be able to that point in my mind where I'm not caught up in this fear of what to do next. And to know that there's something that you experience that happens to you and with you and through you instead of something you have to force really helps give me hope that there's something I can do. So for people like me who are listening and now interested in finding a teacher, how do you go about that?
You can go to my website. It's called drtonynader.com, drtonynader.com. And there you look for where there is a teacher. Or even simpler, we have a site called TM, T for Transcendental, M for meditation. So just tm.org. And then immediately you can say where you are, and then you can sign. We have now a whole program which has started. It's called Meditate America. We celebrated that in New York with Hugh Jackman and Bob Ross and many great leaders and celebrity. Maria Shriver was there, and many other people have come from different walks of life and started this program because we have found that there is this anxiety, this traumatic situation, particularly now with the elections and the divisions and the world is happening and the hurricanes and all of that, as you mentioned, there is lots of worry and for good reason. And we have found that this helps so much that we started this inspiration during that time. So you can also check this with what we call the David Lynch Foundation. But the easiest way to find a teacher is to go to tm.org.
Dr. Tony Nader, thank you so much for joining me today. As we are wrapping up, is there one final thought you would like to leave our audience with?
You are the wave on the surface with a self that is a small s that you observe and see. What you should realize is that you are the ocean. You are the entire ocean. You are pure being, pure consciousness, and we are all connected. And by tapping into that infinite reservoir of creativity and peace and happiness that is within us, we can truly achieve everything and live our dream and live as an individual a healthy, happy life, and as a society, peaceful and progressive and harmonious living where everyone can fulfill their dreams together, even if their dreams are different. So, differences are not the problem. The problem is the perception of differences, whereas we are all unified within.
Thank you so much for listening to Normalize the Conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. This podcast is an initiative of Inspiring My Generation, focusing on normalizing the conversation, bringing education and awareness to the forefront, and amplifying global voices to spark change and hope. Inspiring My Generation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization on a mission towards suicide prevention through awareness, conversation, education, and support. Connect with us on Instagram at Inspiring My Generation and visit our website inspiringmygeneration.org to learn more about our work and how you can make a difference.